Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Payments Leaders Show, where we have a fireside chat with leaders in the industry who see the opportunities and embrace those before they see the challenges, and obviously do that in a very human way. Now, one of the greatest challenges I've observed in the technology industry is the bent towards rivalry, win-lose, and defensive protectionism. That means we pit one vendor against another. Yet the culture I've observed, particularly in the payments industry, is one of collaboration, one of partnership, and one of community. And you can't really do too much in the payments industry on your own, even if you're a very large player. So usually seeking a number of wins for a number of people is the key. And one of the most accomplished people I've seen firsthand is Michael Harty, the founder of the Card and Payments Awards. That has a clear purpose, which is to recognize innovation within payments and to enable better consumer experience. So, Michael, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Adrian. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, first of all, we must shout out to Keith Douglas, who obviously connected us. So thank you, Keith, for bringing us together.
Thank you, Keith, for putting me in the chair. I'll get you back.
Yeah, you owe him one.
Exactly.
So I wonder if we could start with, if you could share why and how you formed the Card and Payments Awards.
Well, it was back in 2005, I guess. Myself and a partner of mine, kind of got our heads together. We've been working with the credit card space. Through the insurance industry, in fact, and we recognized that there was nothing there that really helped to differentiate between what the different at the time just credit card companies. I mean the transformation since 2006 when we had our first event and now is, it's totally mind-boggling what has happened to the industry. So I guess we just saw that there was nothing that said, this is the best product. These are the best vendors. This is the best scheme. This is the best credit card to have. So we decided to put together an awards for the industry, and I guess that's how it started. And it was all about recognizing and rewarding best practice. So that was kind of critical path number one, and number two was that it had to be independent, because the awards are sold in awards in both in our industry and in other industries, and we still see them today where maybe it's not as independent as it might be in the judging process. For us, it's the one thing that we're not able to influence in our own business, which is who actually gets the awards.
Right.
Kind of, concerning and liberating all at the same time for us, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you see an award happen and you're thinking, maybe you don't agree with it, or commercially it's not good for you. But it's liberating because we know that winners have been selected for the right reasons.
Nice.
So yes, long-winded answer to how and why we started.
Excellent. So that was about seeing an opportunity and then seizing that? Is that what seems to be sort of?
I think it was. Short answer is yes. Long answer is that it was an iteration of what we were already doing.
Okay.
We're already working with. Sorry, it was an iteration of developing further business out of an industry that we already did business with. So we worked with on the insurance side with credit card companies all the time. So we had those relationships. We understood the industry to a certain degree. So I guess it was a further development within an industry that we already worked, rather than kind of a blind spot an opportunity. Let's go for it.
Okay. So it was a sort of organic and evolving next natural step by the sounds.
Correct.
Brilliant. Now we obviously last week we got together and we had a fun chat pre podcast. But one of the things that we both agree on is that enabling all boats to rise is what really matters most in the payments industry. Now that's something I'm very passionate about, and that's why I'm involved in this industry. I'd really be fascinated for you to share your lens on that.
Well, look, I've always said that a rising tide lifts all boats,
Yeah,
and I know that you, in your introduction, you talk about protectionism and you talk about collaboration, you talk about competition.
yeah.
I guess, our view of the world is that, competition and collaboration aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, I don't think that. I think competition is a great thing, by the way, Adrian. Uh, I
Mm.
think I think it's brilliant, and you see it in sports. You see, huge competitions. If you think of, I don't want to give a football analogy because actually I'm not really a football fan, but I've seen, great sports teams become better because of each other,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they're trying to emulate what the other guy is doing.
Sure.
So that's competition, right? So that's really good. Um, but we see a lot of collaboration within the industry, and I guess maybe more particularly, it's probably fair to say we see collaboration within what we do as an awards business, where everybody comes together on the one night,
Yep.
and everybody is there uh, to celebrate who's done what and who's been better at what in the prior 18
Yep.
months. And that for me is truly collaborative. I mean, you've
Yeah, yeah.
seen the we have involved in the business. They're all there together. They all sit beside each other. Um, we see on our judging panel, we might see one person, not recuse themselves from voting and vote for a competitor's product, saying
Yeah.
it's just plain and simply better. So this is what should be recognized, and that's what I think is the true collaborative spirit
Mm.
of what we're trying to achieve within the Card and Payment Awards.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and I think it's, do I think we actually make the industry better? I don't. Do I think that maybe we're a tiny part that allows the industry come together and maybe inspires one person to do one thing each year?
Mm.
It'd be amazing to imagine that that's the case. Um, so yeah, collaboration versus competition. I would have said, collaboration and competition, both allow all boats to rise, and I think that's a great thing.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, look, I had the pleasure last February, or this February actually, of going for the first time, and it's a huge event. I'm not
How
sure,
did it take, how did it take you
so
so long to come to the Garden Payment Awards? Where have you
well,
been?
I was waiting for the invite. Yeah,
Were
exactly.
you,
Gee.
were you living in the hemisphere?
Yeah, must have been, must have been. Thanks for that one.
No
But it
problem.
was no, I was always promised, and somebody did describe it as the Oscars of the payments industry. That's what is quite often known as, which is very clever, interesting. But the sheer collaboration going on in the room is incredible. And what struck me is like everyone's there. This,
Yeah,
this you look around and there's not a headline, whether it's a scheme, whether it's scale up. So you're thinking, who's not here? And the answer is nobody.
yeah,
And the sheer level of collaboration you see as soon as you're in the rooms, and then actually when you go down to the Great Hall as well, it's fantastic. It's fantastic events. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but also it's doing business. There's pretty obvious whether that's at the bar, at the table, or during the awards. So
yeah. Like I think, and I think these events become are becoming increasingly rather than decreasingly relevant. In
yep.
a world where there's less face-to-face interaction,
Yes.
um, I think that creating environments which allow whatever debate,
Yeah.
discussion,
Mm.
conversation, just eyeballing somebody,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I think is a great thing.
Yeah.
I love all. There's a lot of media at the moment about AI
Yeah.
and what that's going to do to the world. Um, for now, I think people still do business with people. For now, I think people still make decisions, and I think it'll be a long time before people don't want to meet each other, press the flesh, get a measure of the person opposite them, and then either do business or not.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we continue to provide value in that regard as well.
Yeah, I think that the post-COVID piece has had that there's a lot more willingness to get face to face for people, and also people want to take advantage of that. It's interesting for me when I do a lot of consulting and advisory work. quite often I'm looking at somebody's go-to-market strategy or revenue strategy, and I just try and also just say, out of these customers in the last 6 weeks, how many have we met face to face? And there's a ridiculous correlation between those people we trust, like, and respect, and no, and
Yeah,
and what sort of relationship we're going to have with them.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, anyway, look, we're going to see where that's all going to pan out in the next, whatever, 5-10 years, in terms of, how much people need to go to the office, and
Mm.
uh, how much face-to-face business is done. I've got my own views on where I think it's going to end up, but
Where do you think it's going to end up? I'd love to know.
well, sorry, before I answer that question, I'm going to say I'm wrong all the time. So let me preface it by saying that. Look, so I suppose, little anecdote. I was speaking actually on Saturday. I had some people for lunch, and we were. One of them was giving a story about. So that guy worked for one of the big five,
Yeah.
and he was giving a story about a headhunter. They were out looking to recruit somebody, and there was an interview coming up, and the headhunter contacted the candidate and said, "Oh, what time suits you to meet with, whatever, Mary?" And it transpires during the course of their email exchange that in fact the candidate is required to come into the office for the interview, um, rather than it being an online call. At which point the candidate said, "I'm not interested," and that was the end of the
Wow.
process.
Wow.
And then anecdotally, I hear of one major FMCG brand, global. I mean, really
Yeah.
one of the big brands in the world. I won't say who it is. Has just told everybody back to work, into the office. A whole
Yeah.
lot of you go back to work, and sorry. So where do I think it's going to end up? I think it's going to end up with industry determining and business determining what's right for industry and business, because
Mm.
a lot of what I hear is, "Oh, well, this is what young people want, and this is how you will or won't attract talent." Um, I think industry is going to say, actually, people need to be able to see each other to,
Mm.
to motivate, to collaborate, and be competitive. And you
Mm.
know, who's the
Yeah.
next guy? Who's the next guy who wants the promotion? Right, that creates competitive environment. Or sorry, guy or girl. I'm talking in generic terms. Um, so I think it's important. I think people will end up in the
Mm.
office, maybe not 5 days a week,
Yeah.
uh, and correct, shouldn't be for 90 hours a week.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe not 5 days a week, but certainly I think 4. That's where I think it's going to end up.
Mm. Interesting. Interesting. So
You look
just
you
so
look like 3.
so no,
You,
I actually agree. I agree.
oh, you
I think, yeah, I think for me, I think we're already moving to. I think first of all, I'd say the mandating to come in 5 days a week every week. I think that's fraught with danger. I'd
yeah,
advise a lot of companies on this because you're basically saying to very senior people often, we don't trust you. Whereas I think if you say, okay, for what purpose? So why are we in the office and what are we doing in the office? Okay. Actually, I suppose coming from a revenue background, it's like we should be spending far more time in our customers' offices, number one, from a
mm,
revenue perspective, but
yeah,
also when do we collaborate? But visibility is important. And you just mentioned about getting promoted as well.
yeah.
It's interesting. If you're not visible, you're forgotten. And I coach a lot of senior leaders on their personal branding, etc. And it's like, how are you going to get promoted if we don't know who you are? And that competition element you mentioned there as well. If somebody is visible, is doing a good job, is putting their hands up for the right project. So yeah, I think times are shifting, but you say it will probably be driven by businesses, but they just need to be careful and engage. If they can engage with it as well, I think it'll work.
Did I tell you about the 3 A's the other day? I told you that, didn't I? Did I
No,
say
no,
that?
go on, go on. No, no, go on.
So well, it's this kind of visibility piece, and this is something I say to my kids all the time, and I've got a few different stories about this where it's kind of proven to be true, but um, uh, my father-in-law was a country GP, and when he was going to take over the practice he was taking over from the retiring dispensary doctor at the time. Now this is back in 19, probably 1950.
Okay.
This is a long time ago, right? And this is a country doctor. This is someone with no business training,
Yeah.
right? This guy, he's not an MBA from,
Yeah.
Edinburgh, or Oxford, or Cambridge, or wherever it might be. And he said to my father-in-law, he said, Tom, if you want a successful practice, he said, always remember the 3 A's in this order. In this
Okay.
order, right? And it was availability, availability, affability, and ability, right? And I think it was probably the most, brilliantly succinct piece of advice you could give to anybody who wants to build any business or build any career.
Yeah.
And where you say visibility, read availability, right?
Yeah.
And then of course affability, and this is what you're all about, which is you got to be a nice person to for people to want to
Yeah.
with you and for you and deal with you and do business with you. And tertiary to all of that is actually your ability. And I think that some people think that they're so able that those other two things
Yeah. Yeah.
are unimportant, and I think they're wrong.
Hey, look, I've just written that down. I love that. I
Yeah,
I show
yeah,
people how to do this.
you're not allowed to use it.
I've got it. I've got
Mine,
it's
mine.
yours. Is there TM next to that?
Yeah,
TM
yeah, exactly.
MH.
No,
No,
I think I told someone else that story a couple of years ago, and he was giving a speech the next week. And he said, "Do you mind if I use it?" I said, "Knock your socks off." I said, I think everybody should.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody should have that in their head: availability, affability, and ability. Anyway.
See, I would use different words and terms to do that, but again, for me, it's like be easy to do business with. And
Yeah.
it's interesting. I've got a lot of Irish clients. Yep. And it's interesting. We were doing some work not so long back, and we were talking about, is it the quality of work that we actually do that makes us different from everybody else? And when we really drilled it down, I said, people like doing business with you. They trust you, they like you, and they do respect you. Yeah, they're my three: trust, like, and respect on relationships. But
Okay.
actually, yeah, there are, as we know, we have crowded markets everywhere where lots of people can do the same thing as you, but being able to do the same thing and wanting to actually spend time with people, it's key. No, I love that one. I love that one.
Good. You're
Um,
welcome.
and I love your other one the other day we were talking about as well. Is I knew we go miles off topic, which is great. It was about, I was only talking to my son about this the other day. I know you were talking to your daughter about, if you don't mind me mentioning, picking the phone up.
Oh
Picking the
yeah.
phone up,
I,
and it's a message to everybody. Well, God, you do everybody share the story about how to get your next job, how to get in front of people.
yeah, but sorry. So tell that story. Sure. So it was my eldest daughter who was looking for a job, and kind of she was taking a gap year, air quotes. Um, and she was looking for a job, and she sent out, like, went on to one of these, I don't know, jobs.ie or Indeed
Yeah,
or that, and sent out something like 30 or 40 CVs, and kind of sat back and said, I've done it, Dad, job done. And I kind of said, that's really not job done. I said, who are the businesses? Go call in, ask for the manager. There was one job she actually really wanted, and she was, she did actually call in to see the manager, but they refused to leave her to see the manager at the front desk, right?
yeah.
And it was a restaurant, and so I said to her that what she really should do is um, go and buy a cup of coffee and sit down as a customer and say, "Can I see the manager?" She would have got right away
Brilliant.
as the customer, right? But anyway, she didn't want to do that. She felt it was playing the system a bit too much. So I'd kind of said to her, you've got to figure out how to set yourself apart from all the other applicants, because we've all seen it, right? We've all had, LinkedIn. I've had LinkedIn applications, 50, 60, 80, 100 of them. There are only two or three stand out, and it's typically because they go above and beyond.
Absolutely.
Uh, so I had said to her, follow up, call in, telephone, and at the very bare minimum, send a follow up email, which this generation or that generation appear to be comfortable doing. They're certainly not comfortable picking up the phone to somebody, which
Yeah.
is somewhat concerning. But anyway, so she sends 3, maybe 4 emails to the jobs she really wanted the most. She got called to 3 interviews purely on the basis that she was one of the few that had sent the follow-up email, and she was offered 2 jobs out of the 3 interviews, and was told on each, you were called because you're one of the few who actually made an effort to send out and follow up. So yeah, so that's the story. You know, hopefully it's a lesson that'll sit with her in life.
Wonderful. So it obviously, as an ex-headhunter myself, this is how jobs happen. You know, jobs don't go to the best people, the best qualified and the most qualified. They go to the most connected. That's as an ex-headhunter myself. And the other thing as well, headhunters, by the way, walk around with a database in their head of people who've made an impression on them. And often before I ever walked into a brief, I knew who, before we did any research, who were the best candidates. And it wasn't about skill. It was usually about impact and influence and how they would interview in front of people. But I think that for the payments industry, there's a lot of hungry businesses out there trying to disrupt, etc. But whether it's trying to get funding, whether it's trying to get talent, or whether it's trying to get into a new customer or a new prospect, your formula there, that works. Get in front of people.
Yeah, no, look, I suppose your big question is, and it's back to the 3 A's, right? Is technical ability the most important thing? And I think time and again, I think the world has proven it's not. Now, should it be? That's a different question.
Yeah, that's a different question.
That's not something I'll try to answer. I guess my view is, the reality of the world is that, it's totally human nature to want to do business with someone that appears to be easy to do business with. That's pretty ground zero stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's about and that's what the availability and affability is all about. Technical ability, I don't know. You hear about these great surgeons, and they say, "Oh my God, but he's got a terrible bedside manner." Maybe in that environment, maybe people go, "Well, actually, I need a I need a surgeon. I need the only guy who can stitch up this heart valve or whatever it might be. So I'll deal with the fact that he's awful." I'm not sure there's many other walks of life where your technical ability will supersede your lack of awareness or ability in other aspects of human interaction.
Just on that front, even in that case, I forget the study, but there was a study, I think it was in a Boston University, and there was a heart surgeon who was renowned as the best heart surgeon on the planet. Best rates of recovery than anywhere else on the planet. Obviously, depends where you get your data from, etc. That was the headline. Anyway, he gets headhunted to a hospital 10 miles away. But he doesn't take any of his team.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this. He's the rock star, the goal scorer, only goes himself. Okay, so he doesn't take his theatre team, etc., his anaesthetist and his nurses, etc. And he literally, over the next 18 months to 2 years, not just plummets, but literally goes not just average, but even below average. So I think there's something else that comes in here, which is, whether it's sales, whether it's business, whether it's payments, it's a team game.
All day long.
Yeah.
All day long, and the guys, the leaders I meet in the industry are, universally not about themselves. I think they see themselves as facilitators and enablers. I'm not sure they even see themselves as leaders, to be honest with you, because there's a certain vanity associated with the word leader. And sorry, that doesn't mean they're not leaders, I hasten to add. I'm saying I don't think they see themselves necessarily.
I'm with you.
I think they see themselves as, just being the guy who's fortunate enough to have been in the right place at the right time to be able to continue to, facilitate the people that have helped them to get into the position that they're in, type thing, right? And I do see that time and again. I mean, there's very little ego in any of the senior guys or girls, I hasten to add. So when I say guys, I mean it. I mean it homogeneously. Um, there's no ego in
Yeah.
any of the leaders. I don't think they see themselves in those terms. Um, so yeah, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but that'll be my view.
Well, yeah. Look, and obviously I'm very privileged, like yourself, to be in a lot of rooms with a lot of senior leaders. It's phenomenal when you see the best leaders because they really do sell themselves as the cog, as the facilitator. Many of them. I will quote one. I was just running an offsite. Fair play to this guy. I was running an offsite a few years ago, and his I was observing, but his big boss from the States was sat here, and the States had come up with this great number. They said, there's a triangle. This is the number we need to hit. This is the culture that we're going to move to. And by the way, this is the people. The people with this tiny little triangle at the bottom. And
Mhm.
this guy is an outright servant leader, okay, with very little ego. And he literally turned the triangle upside down. We look after the people. We'll get the culture right because behaviors drive culture, and culture drives results. The numbers will sort themselves out.
Yeah,
And he started laughing. Anyway, at coffee break, I said to him, I said, you're having a blast today, aren't you? And he said, what do you mean I'm having a blast? I said, well, it's not even like work. He's like, Adrian, if this ain't fun, I'm out of here. Of course we're
yeah,
going to have a blast. Of course we're going to go on a hockey stick of growth. And of course we're going to do that. But of course, he just walked off and grabbed a coffee.
that's brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant.
So I just wonder if we could just have a look at the opportunities for people coming into the payments industry. What excites you about this industry? Obviously, the very basis has been the innovation, and it's been incredible in the last decade. Well, what excites you about the opportunities?
Well, it's a tough one to answer, right? Because I've said to you before, what I certainly am by no means a technical expert in the payments industry.
Mm.
That's not what we're about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, what does what do I think the opportunities are? Um, if you'd asked me in 2006 if I thought the industry was going to end up where it is today, I wouldn't have given you the right answer.
Yeah,
But what I think is exciting is that it is, and it continues to be an extraordinarily, and I mean extraordinarily, innovative, progressive space.
yeah,
Um, if one of my kids told me they wanted to go and work in the payments industry, I'd be super excited for them. Actually,
yeah,
I used to, my other industry was the insurance. Um, I'm not sure I'd be so excited if they said they wanted to go and work in the insurance industry. It's not the same kind of pace of development, pace of
yeah,
change. It's almost like you wake up. I mean, every year we sit down and I see the entries that come in, and they actually boggle the mind.
yeah,
And I kind of think, like, wow, like what are they actually going to think of next? And
mm,
each year I think that it's going to slow down, and it never does.
I know.
Right? So if you want to relate that back to what I think are the opportunities in the industry, like I think I mean, I literally think that they boggle the mind.
Yeah, it's true.
If, if your bent is a fast moving, innovative space that is looking to solve problems all the time, then I think it represents huge opportunities for you. I think if you're looking to sit in your tush and not do a lot, I'm not sure you're going to be comfortable in that space.
Yeah,
But I think for a customer who's got, sorry, for an individual who's got that bent, I think it's an incredibly exciting space.
yeah. Oh no, that's why I'm in this industry, is because I enjoy the fact that all boats can rise, and we can actually make it a lot better for everybody in the whole of society and the world, for the unbanked to the underbanked. But I agree. I think I'm always amazed. It's like it was interesting the other day. I needed to get some cash out. It's a small example, but I needed to get some cash out. Um, and I was like, it's literally 18 months since I had cash in my wallet.
Mm-hmm.
Now I grew up upon my mum. She budgeted on cash. She might have had a credit card, but she never owed a credit card any money. She was never in debt. That's how she managed. That's a world away now. I'd just be, it's
Well,
only the start.
it isn't. It's not, Adrian. Right. So I'm not sure I agree with you. So I think the industry has facilitated, virtual cash and that
Yeah,
ability to budget with virtual cash.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so I'm I know it's not a cookie jar anymore,
yeah.
where the money was, stuffed into it at the start of the month or the start of the week, and that was supposed to last. Um, but I think it is. I think it's gone, so far better than that now in terms of
Yeah.
your ability to isolate and silo money, track and trace it,
Yep.
give it to your kids, track and trace how they're spending it.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I think, you're correct. There's no cash, but I think that's an amazing thing, and I think the world is so much better, and I think, the industry isn't just, it's not there just to service credit and interest rates,
Mm.
and right. So it's not, that's not what I see. I don't see an industry that's, just trying to, load people up on, you said there, your mom never had a credit card. Good on her, by the way. Um, but the industry is there to service people like that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Those
yeah,
products
absolutely.
are out there, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think that's really cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's some old-fashioned values there, but I completely agree. Is like it's incredible what you can now do with, as you say, segment money, distribute it to whom you want to, and track where it's going. This is just remarkable as to my son got stuck in Germany not so long back with flights coming back or whatever. We just wired him money in seconds, and
Ping,
it's literally.
ping.
Oh, it is.
I
It's
mean,
great.
it just, as I say, I think it boggles the mind.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful.
It
So
really does.
what's the flip side of that then? Obviously, a fast-paced industry, still, a regulated market. What are the challenges within that space then?
Well, like, again, like, are they mutually exclusive? You know, is regulation bad? Is regulation good? Is regulation, you know, counterproductive to good business? I guess sometimes, and sometimes I think, and I probably understand more on the insurance space in relation to
Sure.
regulation on the payment
Okay.
side, and sometimes it doesn't quite get the balance right, and I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to use the word overstep, because the regulator is there to make sure that, I mean, the regulator isn't actually anti-commerce,
No.
right? The regulator is just trying to make sure that consumers don't end up footing an enormous bill for an enormous failure, and they're trying to make sure that customers don't have the wool pulled over their eyes by very large organizations, and I think that's a really good thing. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes the actual, I don't want to say regulator, because I kind of want to depersonalize it. Sometimes the regulations that they introduce, I think, don't consider the ramifications of
Sure.
all of the wording of all of their rules and regulations. And I think that's where it becomes difficult, and I think that's where you end up getting this, call it a negative coming together between industry and regulators. And I don't know what the actual solution to that is. It's impossible to get it right first time. Maybe they should look um, to review, because they have these review periods before a regulation is introduced, right? And everybody reviews, and that's all very academic. Um, uh, and then the regulation comes in, and everybody's scrambling, in the time period that you're now given to before you're fully compliant. And then suddenly the real world stuff starts to
Yeah,
come
yeah,
to light.
exactly.
And I just, maybe if there's a secondary review process
Yeah, yeah,
after that,
good point.
something like that that would help industry and the regulator, because they all agree they want to protect the consumer. And
Yeah.
I don't business who doesn't want to protect the consumer. Um, so yeah, sadly, they're kind of seen as being, you know, a coming together of two opposing forces, and I don't think that's what the intent is on the
No.
regulatory side. But sadly, that's the way it seems to work out because of real world problems.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that. I think obviously guide rails and beyond guide rails are really important, but actually almost I don't know whether it's possible to launch in beta and then view when it's hit the market and actually say this didn't work for us, etc. Because up until that point, but as I say, it doesn't need to be seen as a barrier to innovation. Because I think that would be sad if that's the case.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, no, no. What are you going to say?
I wasn't. I'm backing out of it.
You what,
I was
say?
gonna waffle. I'm not waffling.
I like your waffle. Why not waffle? Go on.
Waffling.
Okay. Just coming back, because obviously that was the key, one of the key reasons I wanted you to come on the show was just about people and leadership. So I wonder if you could sort of share with us some of the influential people in your life. You know, you show up very authentically as you are, whom you are. Who's been influential to you, or the environments have been influential for you to do that? Because not everybody does do that, and you clearly do.
I think that I've been exposed to a lot of really, really impressive people through my career,
Okay.
and I've also been exposed to some monstrously underwhelming individuals who who have who've achieved some great positions in business, and I don't know. I don't know which one I learn more from. Is it seeing the way not to do it, or seeing the way to do it? I'd struggle to pick. Maybe there are three or four guys. I I think I'd often have said through my career that maybe there's three people that I ever kind of, maybe four, that I ever did business with, right? That on a very kind of intrinsic level, that I would say I'd work for that person.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah.
I'd work for him or her. Uh, they could just tell me what to do, and I'll go and do it. And you respect them on an IQ level, on an EQ level, on an interpersonal level. They've kind of got the whole package. Um, I think it's, so you pick up little bits from everybody, from lots of different people that you deal with. I think if you're an observer of people, which I try to be, I think you learn little bits and pieces from everybody you talk to. But I've also learned a lot from people who, to my mind, maybe had the technical ability, but lacked everything else. And you see the damage that they do in the environments that they're operating in. The interesting thing is it never lasts that long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you often see that those people struggle to achieve the same position in another business.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Eventually, it always falls down. And when it falls down in them, they'll never get back to that level. And I have seen that time and again.
Mm.
We would see a lot of most of our clients and the people we deal with see us on a as a partnership.
Yeah. Yeah.
Partnership relationship,
Yeah.
more than buyer supplier,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I suppose the people that I've been underwhelmed by, both in my insurance career and in my awards career, are people who want to take that stance of, you supplier, me buyer, you do what I say, or
Mm.
or else. And those people, as I say, they never last
Mm.
long. And when they come out of that role, as I say, you rarely see them go into the same or more senior role somewhere else. It's unusual that happens.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating, because a lot of the work it's an interesting way of saying about the IQ, EQ, and I call DQ. Yes, about decency quotient. Very few people you see have got the whole package there. Yeah. Um, and it's often when I come and my team as well, when we will quite often enter some amazing rooms, when you look and you go, right, definitely the least IQ in this room, definitely. Okay?
Yeah,
more badges than whatever. But we're always brought in to bring that together, to
yeah,
get an operating rhythm, and to get a culture where finance and product and revenue generation, etc., and risk, etc., are working coherently together. And actually, that cultural piece, I'm again, like yourself, keen observer of human nature and human behavior, and I think it's fascinating. It's interesting when you talk about the partnership piece as well, though. Is that I suppose I learned this very early on. Always try and seek 4 or 5 wins. If you try and do that, I say I don't mind winning last as long as I win at some point. Is my view on life. But I never forget many years ago, just a quick story for me was when I was clearly a very large organization, I was headhunting for them and I hadn't filled a form in correctly, or you had to give your passports in or whatever. And I never forget this lady said to me, every time one of your candidates doesn't come in with that check, I'm going to reduce 2 points off your fee. Okay. And I said, so I couldn't resist this. I started laughing. Okay? She said, well, why are you laughing at me? And I said, tell you what, why don't you take 4 off? Go on, go for it. And she was like, you're being facetious. I said, no, at all. I said, it doesn't matter. It was just an accident. I said, the guy is Italian. He hadn't come in for this. It was just an admin error, and we corrected it. And we corrected it before it ever happened. So it wasn't actually an error. And she was just stunned. I said, we run the business. And I wasn't trying to be rude, but I said, we don't need to do business together. And if this ain't fun, I don't want to do this. And she said, but you need the fee. And I was like, luckily, I'm really lucky, we don't. And do you know what? We don't need this friction.
Sure.
She's like, you are supplying me. And she just didn't get it. And I was like,
Sure.
we'll finish this and we're done. Because I don't need my staff spoken to that like that. It won't happen.
Yeah.
And she's like, you will walk away from the business. And I was like, we will. And we'll find another client and another partnership to engage with and enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you were right, because it doesn't serve anybody. It certainly, by the way, it doesn't serve the person who's behaving that way either.
No.
So yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. I knew our stories would be interesting to be flying about today as well. So I meant to shut up and listen. So I wonder if we could just go back a bit. The 21-year-old question. When you were much younger, we're both probably similar ages. So the same for me as well. What do you wish you knew early on that you know today? And obviously the experiences you've had have shaped you as well. But what do you wish you knew earlier on?
No, first of all, I'm not sure we are similar ages. I think you're older, but anyway, it's a whole different conversation, Adrian. Okay, so what do I wish I knew earlier on? God, that's a tough question, and I think that I think it's probably I wish I'd accepted earlier in my career that every day's a school day. I wish I'd accepted that. That how you are as a person is a constant iteration of who you were the day before.
Yeah.
And if you don't accept that, I think it's hard. So I remember early in my career, I was super ambitious. I'd be the guy who'd work 16, 18-hour days. I'd be in the office at 6 a.m. No, I was in a culture where that was absolutely promoted in the corporate insurance world. But this idea that you become an expert at anything, I think is kind of preposterous, right? I think you can become knowledgeable. But for me, expert is kind of like, okay, I now know everything there is to know about this. And I think it's just not possible. So now, and I'm totally open to the fact. I mean, interestingly, you said, you walked into a room and you said you're definitely the lowest IQ in the room. I think the day anybody walks into the room and thinks they have the highest IQ in the room, they've already lost the argument, right? So, the idea that you might know more than everybody else on a particular topic, or by the way, or that should be necessary, I think is silly. So I kind of wish I just stepped back and allowed myself be in a constant iterative learning process, rather than I have to know more, I have to know more, I have to know more, I have to know more. But and then I'm the finished article, and of course you never are, right? So because you always meet a guy who knows more, every time, like without fail, always second, third, fourth, fifth, like whatever it might be, and by the way, and that's fine. You don't have to have all the answers. So I think I would say to my younger self, relax and slow down a little. Uh, by the way, and sometimes it's good to be cheap. I do say that to my kids,
It's good to
as
be
in
cheap.
sorry, yeah, as in not expensive. When you're gaining valuable experience, it's as
Yeah,
good as it's as good as been paid money.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Early on, yeah,
Who just did some uh, her first helping job on a sailing course here, and she got paid €20 for the week, and she
yeah,
did 40 hours. She's furious, and I said, yeah, but you've earned a lot of experience. So I told her to equate experience to
yeah, absolutely.
money. Um, so yeah, I mean, there are lots of little things, I guess, that you tell yourself. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no huge, there's no huge nirvana moment.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know if that answers the question for you or not, but it's all you're getting from me.
Well, on that note, then,
I
um,
well, I mean, honestly, I could have a good long talk with my younger self, right? And it'd be an awful lot longer than this answer. I'd say,
brilliant.
don't do that. Stop it. Do it differently. Relax. Smile more. Enjoy people more. etc. etc.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, look, this is this is how I normally try and sort of bring our conversation together a bit, have a bit of a summary. But I've got a sort of couple of pages of notes here. Just want to just go through a couple of highlights, if that's okay. Um, I think first of all, just noting that it wasn't a big aha moment to actually form the Card and Payments Awards, and I think a lot of businesses look for that sometimes. That gap, it seemed a very natural, organic iteration of a space you were already in. Um, on these conversations, I always look for like, what's the one thing that came out of this conversation? And for me, the three A's, I absolutely love that because it's as true today, and I think it would be true in 50 years' time as it was 60 or 70 years ago. About actually, it might have been a country practice GP, but I think this works in any interaction you want to have in business is about availability, um, affability, and then actually ability. People want to do business with people they like and they trust and they respect. And that isn't changing anytime soon in human nature. And so I love that piece. And I think it's so true. Um, it's
Do
interesting what you
you,
were saying there about as well about where business is, and coming back to the office, etc. I do think again, visibility. I think is going to be really important. I think we're really lucky. We're in a great industry, which is innovating. Like you get the chance to see all the innovations every year, and you're always sort of mind boggled by team. I didn't even think that was possible, and that isn't stopping anytime soon. And I think it's a shout out to young talent out there, which is I think this is a great industry to be involved with if you want the pace of change and opportunities to keep on creating. Um, I think the other piece for me about I love about the influence on your life. You say you've met some impressive people who've got the package, who you probably would have if they'd have asked you for a role, but they've been rare. They had the IQ, they had the EQ, and they had the DQ, the decency as well. But I loved your comment of being monstrously underwhelmed by many people, and I think but as a keen observer of people, it's like okay, it's fascinating and always stay curious is what I took from that. Um, the conversation with your younger self, it sounds like that could be a long one. But I suppose the big ones for me is every day is a school day. And actually you're never the finished article, but keep on iterating, but sort of hold it lightly was the sort of feeling I was going to get from that. And also, I think quite interesting one day you described it as sometimes not a bad idea to be cheap, but actually as somebody who studied careers for the last 20 or so years, getting yourself in the right space can be as important. The right experience can be as important, if not more experience, than what you're actually being rewarded at that time. So they were my takeaways from today. And thank you very much. Anything you'd add to that at all, Michael?
no, except your ability to summarize is superb. Thank you. I wish I could ever be as succinct as that.
I do this a lot. I get the easy bit. You
I
give me
love
all the content,
it.
I get the easy bit at the end.
Well, look, thank you for having me on. If nobody invites you to the Card and Payment Awards this year, you can come as my guest. Um, so keep that in mind. You can take that as an official invite. And it was really nice to talk to you. And thank you for having me on.
Well, look, Firstly, thank you. That's very generous of you. That's very kind of you. But I've really enjoyed today's conversation. I genuinely have. It's been a lot of fun. And I think we're going to speak a lot more after today. So thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate it.
All righty.
Take care.
Thanks and bye.